bit this morning as it's pulling off through the Atlantic, creating problems, wreaking havoc for maybe your beach plans over the weekend up and down the East Coast. Dangerous situation there, even though you'll notice the storm well far away out, away from the East Coast and the Atlantic beaches here. But with a Category 1 hurricane, you can expect it to continue moving off into the North Atlantic and creating some of those issues. Still forecast to be a hurricane as it's moving there south of St. John's on Tuesday. Eventually, of course, it is losing steam as it enters that cooler water of the North Atlantic. We've got a high rip current risk up and down the East Coast for our Atlantic beaches. We're talking to you in Ocean City, Atlantic City, Nags Head. I know all of these places popular kind of getaways when we're still kind of wringing out the last little bit of our summer, but it is dangerous to be in that water, and we've seen that happen and that be verified over the weekend with the dangers that we've seen at beaches. Coastal flood advisory for portions of the Delmarva around Delaware Bay up through Atlantic City, Toms River. You could have about a foot of inundation, and so that's impacting those beach roads, those especially what is the word I'm looking for? Those beach roads and those places that are more vulnerable to the tidal flooding. We've got a full moon, of course, so that is also impacting us. We've got the life-threatening surf and rip currents. When you've got those waves, when you've got a full moon as well, all of those different things coming together that are going to make it more dangerous at our beaches as we head through today into early Tuesday as well. We do start to see things improving a bit as we head through the day on Tuesday. But the moral of the story here is, Jen, is make sure you're paying attention to those beaches. Look at those flags. If double red flags are flying, you should not be in that water.
There's beaches closed like in Queens and Brooklyn today because of the rip current risk. You know, it could be.
That is going to make such a huge difference. So when we're looking at these heat advisories, the dew points are playing a role, but the actual temperatures themselves are so hot that the dew points are not actually making a huge difference. We've got excessive heat warnings up for places like Dallas, Fort Worth, and then a heat advisory everywhere you see the red stretching through the Gulf Coastal Plain, southern Louisiana as well. We've got this high pressure in place. It's building across the southern plains under this ridge. It is strongly in control of our weather here. That is our story. With the heat building under that ridge, it sticks around and it is dangerous when you're talking about kind of days and days of this heat, especially at the level that we're seeing. Not just above average, it is above average, but potentially record highs for each afternoon and morning lows. That's when you know it's dangerously hot, when you're not having that chance to see things cooling off even into the overnight hours. Your temperatures are just staying really hot. The records for today, that possibility to break records in Abilene and Wichita Falls. You can see the records here from just last year. Lubbock 102 would be the forecast, getting very close to that record from 1993. Now, the forecast heat index, you may notice typically when we're talking about the heat index values, the temperature is like 97, the heat index is 107. But when your dew points aren't crazy high, it's not going to make your heat index that much higher. But as you can see, the actual temperatures are just so hot that you don't even, it doesn't even really matter whether you've got a super high dew point or not. So Jen, you know, I know we both love a slightly like a little bit more moist dew point, but when you're talking about temperatures like this, you can be thankful that maybe your dew point's 69 and not 74, because that makes a big difference.
I think a lot of people
are fantastic, especially with you know, the weather that we're forecasting. Hopefully by Labor Day weekend the weather is still nice and crisp. You'd hate to see it cool down like this week and then Labor Day weekend be like stifling,
which you can do, as you know. I mean, most of the time I think Labor Day weekend works out that you get somewhere a cool snap, but not everywhere. So someone's going to still have the heat at this point.
Right, exactly. It is still, you know, we call it the unofficial into summer, but we know it all too well through September, especially in the South. It can still just be stifling.
It's just kind of stressing me out a little bit because we've got the end of meteorological summer, which ends the end of August. And then we've got the end of social summer, as I call it, which is like Labor Day.
Right.
So we've only got one more threshold left to go, which is the seasonal end to summer. So.
I am personally not ready yet.
Me neither. Me neither.
No.
It's a feeling. It's not just the weather. It's a feeling.
It is. It's your frolicking is starting to wind down, and that's how I feel about it.
We'll keep those comments coming. You can share them on social media, pics and video with us using the hashtag YesTV, and we will share on the show.
Waters, if you see that water coming up quickly, you want to make sure you are getting out of that as fast as you can. Let's take a look at what you could expect today in some terms of our airport delays. Maybe a few delays here across portions of the Rockies, Denver getting in on that, but then also some delays expected up and down the East Coast. We've got that chance for some rain and storms flying into or out of Boston today. You could find yourself with some weather-related delays. Right now, all green bubbles on the map, which is a good start to your Monday morning, right? But as you head through the the day today and we see a better chance for some of those storms bubbling up, you might start to see some of those airport delays, and that could be impacting your commute on 95 if that's where you're traveling, or just your workday commute. We've got a front that's going to be moving through that's bringing us some showers. That is also going to bring us that possibility for some stronger storms, maybe some gusty winds with that as well. Here's the forecast. Your lunchtime in Scranton and Albany, you're dealing with some of that rain. Boston, same thing. NYC lunchtime should still be okay for you. We see a better chance for those storms along that 95 corridor and east as that front is pushing farther eastward from Boston down through NYC. Baltimore getting in on that. Buffalo, though, by your afternoon rush, Scranton, you'll start to see things improving there. Heading down to Florida, where we've got all green bubbles kicking off our morning, but we've got that chance for some feisty storms, especially for northern portions of the state, as that front is hanging around some very heavy rain, lots of lightning that could cause some delays for you in Jacksonville. And then as you look farther south, of course, just your typical summertime thunderstorms, Jen, that could always cause some of those delays.
Yeah, but they, can put down some quick
solve some of your issues. You might not only need those rain boots in the northeast, but across portions of the south. That frontal boundary is kind of hanging around and creating our risk for some storms. We've got that possibility for damaging wind gusts across portions of northern Florida, that I-10 corridor, and then we're going to look at that same risk for damaging wind gusts across portions of eastern Texas, southwestern Louisiana as well. So let's take a look at what you can expect for your day. The wider view of this shows we've got those storms kind of starting to bubble up across southern Georgia. 5, 6 o'clock, you'll have some storms hanging out there north of Jacksonville as well. And then we kind of see this kind of lining up along that I-10 corridor. That is not going to be a ton of fun for us. Not, a crazy coverage of storms, but enough to where any of those storms that do get going could be a little bit on the stronger side. So here's our front. We've had it dive south, and that is going to happen in the middle part of the week. So you'll notice a change then. But while we're dealing with it, you're still going to feel that humidity. It's still going to be a focal point for showers and storms. The problem with this front is that it doesn't sweep through. It kind of hangs out. It stalls, and that is going to remain the focal point for the showers and storms. So that means a lot of the same areas are going to get rain over and over and over again. So heading through Tuesday, we've still got those showers and storms around. We'll start to see that picking back up Wednesday afternoon as well. It is going to be just a rainy time for central Florida. That I-4 corridor south down into Miami, Fort Myers getting in on that as well. Thursday, it's just a rainy week. You guys know how it goes here. When you have one of those frontal boundaries hanging around that won't clear out, it just acts as a magnet for that moisture. So we'll start to see some of that rainfall adding up. You can see some higher totals here, certainly, but a broad brush forecast, 1 to 2 inches. Anywhere where you get those storms to kind of train or line up one right after another, that is going to bring us that possibility for higher rainfall totals. So in Tampa, you've got storms around Tuesday, Wednesday, rain Thursday into Friday. It is a rainy season, so this isn't a crazy forecast for you guys, but it could be a bit enhanced because of that frontal boundary. Miami, same thing. Scattered storms, especially today into tomorrow and each day this week. Quickly, with the water rushing over, say the piers or some of those breakwaters that might typically be safe when you have these beach hazard statements in place. Not safe and can get dangerous really quickly. You can see the beach hazard statements lining pretty much all the shores of the Great Lakes, especially there around southern portions of Lake Michigan, Lake Erie getting in on that as well. The Great Lakes here, this is the beach hazard incidents. So what we're showing you are the color coding where you're seeing the kind of reds and the pinks. That's where you're getting into those higher numbers of beach hazard incidents, the deaths and rescues since 2002. And you may notice a couple different hot spots here, especially around southern Lake Michigan, southeastern portions of Lake Michigan, the northern shore there of the UP, and then some around Lake Erie, the southern portions of that lake there as well. So we want you to be very safe. High risk of rip currents with this kind of trough, this frontal boundary moving through. We've got those onshore winds directed, especially at the southern shores of the Great Lakes, and that becomes dangerous really quickly. So if you're headed out to, say, Sleeping Bear Dunes, temperature at 71, you just want to swim very carefully, and if you can, on those guarded beaches, or stay out of the water completely, Jen.
That's what they've been saying, actually.
So let's take a look at that forecast for the highways and the skyways. As you know, especially if you are flying, it's not always about what the weather is where you are. It might be what the weather is where you're going or where your plane is coming from. So where we could see some delays sprinkled out across the west, Denver, San Francisco, and then up and down the East Coast as well, Boston, some of the New York area airports down into Central Florida, MCO, even the Miami airports, you could have some delays around there. So right now, all green green bubbles on the map. We will take that. It's later today when we have some of those storms moving through, and some of them could have those damaging wind gusts, some very heavy rain along with them. That could cause us some travel issues, not only in the skies, but on the roadways as that front is pushing through. That 95 corridor could be wet at times with very heavy rain, with the gusty wind. So all that could slow you down just a little bit, could slow your afternoon commute down a little bit as well. Let's take a look at the Northeast as a whole. Your lunchtime, there's going to be some rain around from Burlington down through Albany. Baltimore, NYC, lunchtime should still be okay. Boston, you're starting to see some of that rain as well. It's in your afternoon that we really start to see the rain chances and storm chances along that 95 corridor picking up as that frontal boundary is pushed farther eastward. Albany, you've got that chance for some rain, and then those storms hanging around Boston as well. Down to Florida, Jen was talking about it. We have kind of the chance for those stronger storms for North Florida, and then once that front is hanging around Central Florida, we'll have a better chance for storms there. But right now, starting off our morning, all is quiet, lots of green bubbles on the map, but that possibility for stronger storms going to bring us that risk for some delays for places like Jacksonville, maybe even Tallahassee as we head through the afternoon, and then your typical scattered afternoon storms, Jen, there from Orlando down through Miami, which of course, as we know, could cause some delays.
Yes. Now stay on top of threats to your day in a length.
Because from what I've heard, a lot more people will probably be taking road trips for Labor Day weekend than they do for, say, some of the other holidays. So could be kind of busy on the roadways.
It could be busy. I always feel like Labor Day is the holiday that's least traveled.
Yeah, like if you're going somewhere, you're probably just taking a road trip. You're not like flying somewhere.
Yeah. Well, keep those comments coming. Send your comments on social media and share your pics and video with us using the hashtag. We're here to get you ready for what's ahead in your day.
That's right. From coast to coast, the Weather Channel has you covered. And, you know, one of the big things that we've been following is that flooding. You know, a lot of focus on Connecticut, as there should be, but across the Northeast, lots of places experiencing flooding and dangerous conditions.
We saw it in northern Jersey yesterday evening, overnight last night, and Long Island. There's a lot of flooding. You might be dealing with water in your basement this morning. Of course, we saw, you know, some of the most dramatic scenes coming out of Connecticut where it turned deadly as flooding swamped parts of New England. We'll share more on the story. This is in Danbury, but many other towns in this region, right along the I-84 corridor, really hard hit by about 10 inches of rain.
Yeah, we're seeing some infrastructure damage as well, you know, road damage, bridge damage. That is causing people to have to take longer detours as well. So it really is impacting you. If it didn't directly impact you over the weekend while it was happening, it might be impacting your Monday morning commute.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there could be some relief. You know, I wish I could say that we're going to start to see those beach conditions improving as well. But today is still going to be another dangerous day. We're still keeping an eye on Ernesto. 85 mile per hour winds, a Category 1 hurricane. Now, it is moving off to the north-northeast at about 21 miles an hour, so kind of speeding off toward the North Atlantic. But with that system there, we are still seeing impacts on our East Coast beaches. Here's the forecast. Going to pass south of St. John's early Tuesday as a hurricane before speeding off further into the North Atlantic, into that colder water and losing some of that steam. Now, with this system, even, you know, well far away from the East Coast beaches, it is still helping to create those life-threatening conditions in the water, that high surf, those dangerous rip currents, that coastal erosion that we've been seeing. We're heading through the day today, continuing with that. By Tuesday, we start to see conditions improving a bit, but I would say still some of our area beaches, you're going to notice that it is a bit elevated. So we've got high rip current risks up and down for our East Coast beaches today. Nags Head, Atlantic City, as Jen was saying, some of those Long Island beaches as well, and then down to the east coast of Florida. So it is just a dangerous day to be in the water. I would avoid it if I can. And a dangerous day for the water coming to you. We've got coastal flood advisory up for portions of the Delmarva Peninsula around Delaware Bay. We've got that up through Atlantic City and Toms River. Maybe about a foot of inundation to some of those coastal roads that are flood prone, to some of those low-lying areas. So do keep that in mind. Remind you, do not drive through those flooded roads. Now, let's talk about hurricane season a little bit. So far, we've had 5 named storms, 3 hurricanes, 1 major hurricane, and that is all ahead of time. Now, as we head through the later part of August into early September, it's kind of no holds bar. We could see tropical development pretty much anywhere. You start to see more development here in the main development region, the MDR, but the Gulf is wide open. The Atlantic off the East Coast is wide open, Jen, and you can see the probability of tropical formation heading into, say, the end of August, not looking very likely, but that next week, it's looking more likely, and we'll have to keep a close eye on that, Jen.
Yeah, worried about how this season could really end up quite busy.
It doesn't take much for it to feel kind of miserable out there. So we've got heat alerts up. The heat alerts are up for a reason. They're not just up to be like, hey, you know, heat advisory, excessive heat warning. They're up to let you know that it is dangerous. If you work outside, if you do your afternoon run, if the kids are having, say, practice after school, whatever is going on, it is dangerous. You have to take extra hydration. You have to slow down. You have to make sure you're cooling your body efficiently, especially where you see that excessive heat warning, but in the heat advisories too. We've got this ridge that is just dominating our weather pattern across much of the western portions of the U.S., the southern plains here, and that allows that dangerous heat to stick around, and not just, you know, kind of above average, but record heat for your afternoon highs and your morning lows. That's when it starts to get really dangerous because there's just no way to cool off when your morning is hot and your afternoon is hot. So here's our temperatures. Abilene, the forecast for you today, 107. That would break that old record of 106. Wichita Falls, 110. That is your actual temperature forecast in the shade, because we take our temperature readings in the shade. So in the sun, it's going to be even worse. So as you remember, that forecast is around 110. This is our heat index. It's going to feel like 110 in Houston today, like 111 in Corpus Christi. I will tell you, South Padre Island, Texas, down near the southern tip of Texas, that's the hottest I've ever been in my life, the most unable to cool off. When you're talking about those dew points getting up there, it gets just stifling. Tomorrow, we're keeping this heat around as well. Abilene, the forecast 108 for you. And then you'll notice your forecast heat index here kind of close to those actual temperatures, Jen. So it is just stifling heat. And that cool down that you're about to talk about for some of us, I know we would just weather-wise, we have that possibility for some storms bubbling up and down the especially northeast coast. So major hubs like across New York, Boston, you've got that possibility for some delays down into central Florida, MCO, maybe a few weather-related delays. And then you'll notice looking out west, Denver, Billings, that possibility for some storm-related delays. San Francisco, same thing for you guys. We are seeing some delays already here in the northeast. Boston having some weather-related delays. You got some low cloud cover. You've got that cloud deck that's been hanging around. So starting to see a few delays there. Do keep that in mind. We've got a ground delay of about an hour and 16 minutes. So that is going to kind of, as you know, domino a little bit. It's not always about how the weather is where you are, but maybe you're waiting for that flight to come from Boston. Maybe you have a connecting flight, so that can cause you some issues. Just keep an eye on that as you're heading out this morning. We're going to keep an eye on that possibility for storms up and down that 95 corridor, especially later this afternoon. A front is moving through. That is going to ramp up those storm chances a little bit. Some severe storms certainly possible. The main risk with that, with any of those storms reaching severe limits, going to be those damaging wind gusts. As you know, those can blow around those high-profile vehicles, can add an extra element of reduced visibility when that rain is blowing around as well. So your lunch hour showing some rain from Burlington to Albany, Scranton, Harrisburg, getting in on that. We watch that fill in a bit more for your afternoon commute for places like Baltimore, NYC, Boston, still stuck in some of those storms as well as that line of storms is moving through. I mentioned we've got that possibility for some storm delays for, say, MCO, TPA. You might be getting in on that. And then, of course, anytime during rainy season in South Florida, you could have some of those storms bubbling up. We are going to have that possibility for stronger storms from the Big Bend region over to Jacksonville, 75, 95 there in North Florida, included in that, portions of I-10 as well, with those gusty winds, with that heavy rain. For your lunchtime, we've got some storms hanging around Jacksonville. Still fairly quiet in Tampa, Vero Beach as well. We've got those storms that are going to be around Miami. And then we still see for your afternoon commute that 95 corridor dealing with some of those storms. And again, that I-10 corridor, Jen. We are keeping an eye on tomorrow as well. We'll notice that possibility for some storms once again for Central Florida. It is going to be a rainy time there. And for other places also dealing with some rain and storms.
Yeah, we'll see some across the Intermountain West, so pack your umbrella for trips to the Rockies and parts of the plains. Severe storms look to roll over the mountains and into the central U.S. Monsoonal moisture will be there along for the ride, triggering some detours along the way. All look great now, but all of these spots later today, the sky is going to look a lot different with at least clouds. And some of them will be those, cumulus clouds that are growing into cumulus congestus and cumulonimbus clouds. Thunderstorms are coming your way. Right now, you can see what's going on with the water vapor. Where's the moisture? Where's the flow? What's going on? Well, you can see that flow coming out of the southwest. Look at it kind of moving up and into portions of Idaho, Montana, and then kind of curving back down like this. Noon, early evening, comes through 8 o'clock. It's already out of here, but could be a tough rush hour home here in New York City. Felicia, what about the south?
Yeah, we're watching that with that frontal boundary kind of pushing through, and that frontal boundary also going to help to spark up some storms as we look farther south as well. Now, right now, all is quiet across North Florida, that I-10 corridor. You can see our main action that we've got going on out over the Gulf, with the exception of these showers and storms that we're watching sliding from north to south down through Louisiana, Shreveport. You've had some rain around after a very, very hot day over the weekend. It's been really hot across portions of the southern plains the past couple days. We've got that possibility for some strong storms, Jacksonville, Gainesville, over through portions of southwestern Louisiana. With that, the main risk is going to be damaging wind gusts, but of course you've got the heavy rain, you've got the frequent lightning. So let's time it out for you. This is what we're watching here to start off our morning across western portions of Louisiana, from Shreveport down through Alexandria. It's really going to be as we head into the afternoon, evening, that we see those storms bubbling up here across southern Georgia, down into that I-10 corridor, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Gainesville. All of you want to keep a close eye on some of those storms that are going to be moving through, as they could have some damaging wind gusts and, of course, that heavy rain and some lightning with that as well. Starting off your Tuesday morning, we'll watch as that front continues diving southward. Now, behind the front, you're going to get a little bit of a break. It's going to be nice for you eventually once that front moves through midweek. But where that front is hanging out across central Florida, it becomes a bit of a focal point for some of that moisture. It kind of collects the moisture, helps to ramp up those storms, and as it stalls out there around that I-4 corridor, you're going to see a focal point of rain, and that could continue to add up. So here's our Tuesday. You've got your scattered showers and storms now. It's rainy season in Florida. You expect the showers, you expect the storms, but this is going to be less of your afternoon diurnal sea breeze driven storms and more of kind of a rainy day, pretty much on and off all day. That rain could begin to add up across this region. Why it gets dangerous driving through, say, flooding. Look at all that debris that was there on that road. We've got that chance for more rain before all is said and done. I wish I could tell you guys you're getting a break. You hate to see more rain when you're already dealing with issues, but that's just not going to be the case. Let's time it out for you here. You've got that first round of rain, and then watch what happens. We see even heavier rain, a more robust line of storms moving in, heading through your afternoon and evening, overnight as well. A few little light showers even sprinkling around, possible for your Tuesday morning. So we're adding more rain to those same creeks and streams that are already swollen, to that already saturated ground as well. Of course, we were talking about some of the flooding that was happening there on Long Island too. It's just been a really tough go of it. Here's our rain moving in right around 5 o'clock. We're getting off work, right? We're trying to commute home, and you've got this heavy rain and these storms moving through. I know a lot of people there in the city, no cars, using public transportation. It's that day for your rain jacket, your rain boots, all of that. Watch as this sweeps through. Last thing you want to see is more rain. The good news is that, if I had to pick out some good news from this, is that it's moving on quickly. It's not like it's sticking around for hours and hours, which is what we like to see in terms of getting that rain out of there. Boston, you've got some rounds of rain continuing for kind of on and off throughout the day, and then another round of stronger storms possible from Worcester all the way through Boston into the nighttime hours. Those storms could have some gusty winds with them, some very heavy rain as well for Boston. So that could create some flight delays. We were already seeing some delays this morning there at Boston Logan, so keep that in mind. Albany, you're going to have rain moving through, not just rain, but storms along that 87 corridor. Lots of lightning, heavy rain rushing through, and then that will clear out as we head into the overnight hours. Travel HQ, so let's check your forecast for the highways and skyways. We could definitely see some of those domino effects of those air travel delays. You can see our yellow bubbles that we've got up here for Boston, some New York area airports down through Raleigh, Durham, and Central Florida as well. And then looking west, Denver, Billings, you could have some weather-related delays there if you're traveling. Of course, sometimes it's perfectly fine. Maybe you're flying out of, say, Kansas City, headed to Boston, and it should be perfectly fine because the weather is great where you are, but the weather is maybe a mess in Boston. So that's something we're going to keep an eye on. Boston, we've got those delays currently. You can see it shaded because we've had those low cloud ceilings that can mess with your visibility a little bit for the flights trying to take off. So right now our ground delay at about 1 hour and 16 minutes. So if you're in Boston, that is what you're dealing with, just hanging out a little bit. It's always so stressful when you start to see that first weather related delay, because you're like, Oh man, I hope this is it, right? I hope that it clears up and we can get out in the time that we were expecting to get out and it doesn't keep domino affecting. That travel forecast for 95 today, you're going to be dealing with a frontal boundary moving through later on, and that's going to bring us that chance for some of those stronger storms, maybe some gusty winds, some very heavy rain, so that could impact us here. For your lunch hour, maybe it's your day that you take your lunch along with you. You don't venture out for lunch in cities like Albany, Scranton, Harrisburg, where it's going to be raining. Or you could brave the rain. The chance for storms, though, that ramps up for places like Boston heading into the evening. NYC, it's going to be a later in the day thing for you. Same thing in Baltimore. And then down into Florida, green bubbles on the map currently, but we've got that possibility for storms ramping up later on. That I-4 corridor, some rain around, and then a better chance for strong storms there across North Florida for cities like Jacksonville. Jen.
We're helping you. Get you ready for what's ahead in your day.
That's right. From coast to coast, the Weather Channel has you covered. And a lot of us have been dealing with, not just bad rain, but deadly damaging rain that we've seen.
Connecticut in particular, deadly flooding swamped parts of New England this weekend, causing some big issues when it comes to travel. You can see the water from different vantage points here. This is in Danbury, Connecticut. We had damage to roads, damage to bridges. There were delays and detours between Waterbury and New Haven, and still issues this morning.
It's like maybe it didn't impact you directly on Sunday, like your home wasn't one of the ones flooded or something like that, but maybe it's impacting your morning commute as you're heading to work today, or adding that extra 30 minutes. And even if that seems like something simple, that's an inconvenience.
Oh, it certainly is here. So we're going to talk more actually about what's happening across the Northeast, because there is still rain out there in the forecast for today. It's coming up.
It's not all doom and gloom, though. There could be some relief on the horizon. We just have to.
She's there.
Yeah, causing us big coastal issues. And, sometimes it's like, well, what is going on? The storm is really far away, but these storms can churn up the seas so much that you're looking at those beach hazards, large breaking waves, coastal erosion, all of that. This is the latest update on Hurricane Ernesto, actually strengthening a bit, up from 85-mile-per-hour winds to 90-mile-per-hour winds with our 11 a.m. advisory, moving off to the northeast at 28 miles an hour. So that is skirting off quickly toward the North Atlantic. It is forecast to still be a hurricane as it passes south of St. John's overnight tonight into early Tuesday, and then eventually kind of losing some of that steam once we get into that colder water, but still creating very large swells, rough surf, rip currents up and down the East Coast for our East Coast beaches. Look at what happened. So today we're continuing with that rough surf. We've already seen those impacts of what coastal erosion can do. We've seen the impacts of what that large breaking waves in the surf zone can do. We start to see it coming down just a bit on Tuesday, but still could be elevated in some places. That rip current risk for today high for much of the East Coast. I'm looking at you and say Nags Head, Atlantic City, especially those Long Island beaches. In fact, some of the beaches in New York, along the Jersey Shore, you shouldn't even be in at all. Know if those double red flags are flying that you should not be swimming at all. We've got a coastal flood advisory up for around the Delaware Bay for portions of the Delmarva Peninsula up through the Jersey Shore, Atlantic City. Included in that possibility for some of that flooding, maybe about a foot of inundation that is going to come over some of those coastal roads, some of those flood-prone places, causing us issues. So far this season, we've had 5 named storms, 3 hurricanes, and 1 major hurricane. That was Ernesto. Of course, we are ahead in terms of those numbers. We typically don't see, on average, our first major hurricane until the beginning of September. Heading through late August, it's just all lights are green for go in all of the areas where we see storms developing. We call this our MDR, our main development region. We see storms developing there. We see them developing in the Gulf and along the southeast coast as well. Now, heading into next week, the models aren't hinting really at much chance for development, but we do see that possibility of tropical development going up just a little bit for the last week of August, Jen. And that is especially, when you look at statistics and climatology, we start to see things ramping up, especially mid-September.
Yes, indeed. Now, we can see some
crazy dew points, lots of moisture in the air. With this, it's your actual temperatures that are really kind of prompting some of these heat alerts. The dew points making a little bit of a difference, the humidity making a bit of a difference, but especially in places like Dallas, your actual temperature is just already so hot. So we've got an excessive heat warning up. The heat advisories in red red as well, which means dangerous heat, the type of heat you've got to make sure you are taking lots of breaks, staying hydrated. It just wears your body down. We've got high pressure and dominant control, this ridge over the plains really, and it intensifies as that upper level high strengthens. It's going to keep that heat in place and bring us that possibility for record breaking, not only afternoon highs, but morning lows as well. So you're not really seeing those temperatures cool down a lot. It's not just above average heat. It is, record breaking heat. So take a look at some of these temperatures. In Abilene, the forecast is 107. That would break that old record from last year. Wichita Falls, the forecast is 110. And guys, that's in the shade. We take these temperature readings in the shade. So in the sun, it's going to be even worse. So let's take a look at this. Wichita Falls, your forecast temperature is 110. You can see the heat index is 108, which is kind of opposite of what you typically expect. You expect it to feel a little bit hotter, but you actually do have some lower dew points in places like Dallas and Wichita Falls than you might actually expect. But it doesn't mean it's not still going to just be stifling hot. Tomorrow we keep that heat around as well. So Jim, when you're talking about, 108 in Abilene, Texas, even, 89 would feel better. And a lot of us are going to get a much bigger cool down than that.
I mean, at this point, you take 100, right?
If you happen to come to flooded roadways, we always like to remind you, turn around. You don't want to drive through that. The road might be damaged underneath, maybe bridges washed out. You never really know what is going on underneath that water. Now, if you're flying today, could run into some delays. We're already seeing some delays out of Boston, Logan, but some of the New York area airports later on this afternoon, some delays possible there down in Central Florida, as well as Denver, where you're going to have some storms flying in or out of Billings. You could be dealing with some weather-related delays as well. Right now, Boston, over an hour ground delay currently. We had some low cloud ceilings. The rest of the Northeast is looking fine, but if you are flying into, if your flight is coming out of Boston, we're just having issues there. So not the way you want to start off your Monday with over an hour ground delay there at Boston Logan, but that is what we're dealing with. Now, your afternoon commute for much of the 95 corridor could be impacted by some of these storms. It's really going to be probably a lot of us already home because the front pushing through and then the storms bubbling up for the evening. But DC, Baltimore, keep an eye on that possibility for those storms for your afternoon commute hanging around. This is your PM rush, Albany over through Boston, showers and storms around. Same thing in Baltimore as well. And then all is green in terms of our airport delays across Florida, but that chance for storms ramps up later, Jen, and that could cause some travel issues.
Yeah, pack your umbrella for trip.
Places, some of those storms could be a little bit on the stronger side as we head into the afternoon and the evening. Starting off our morning already in the past few hours with this shower and storminess that's been diving south through Louisiana. Shreveport, you've had some cloud cover hanging around there. Little bit of lightning action as well. That's going to continue moving southward. Good news when you see that is typically that means the air is coming in from the north and it's going to cool you off a little bit after it's been so hot, but you're dealing with the storms right now. Quiet along that I-10 corridor currently. That will change as we head into the later part of your day. So that possibility for some stronger storms with the gusty winds, places like Jacksonville down through Gainville. Gusty winds, frequent lightning, some heavy rain as well. So we're watching our little cluster of rain and storms here across Louisiana. That is starting off. You'll notice it continues diving southward. Lake Charles, you're getting some showers out of that before all is said and done. But then look what happens. Here's 5 o'clock. Storms dotting the landscape across southern Georgia, northern Florida as well. Again, some of those could be a little bit more robust with those damaging wind gusts. Not, a crazy amount of storm coverage, but any storm that gets a little feisty, say as you're getting off work and trying to drive home or whatever you might be doing, it's going to cause you some issues. We've got this frontal boundary that's diving southward, and by the later part of the week, it's still hanging out. It stalls out, it doesn't clear out, and that means across central Florida, you are going to have rounds of rain and storms, and that is going to add up some of that rainfall. Here's Tuesday, here's Wednesday. Now, it is the rainy season. You expect your typical, sea breeze driven showers and storms. They start along the coast, so sea breezes collide in the middle of the state. But this is going to be more of that type of rain where it's raining kind of all day. It's not your diurnally driven sea breeze storms. And then that is continuing throughout the week. That's going to allow that rainfall to add up. Broad brush forecast 1 to 2 inches, but some locally higher amounts where you get some of those storms kind of over the same spots over and over again. Tampa, you're one of the areas that we're watching. You're going to have showers and storms each day today. Same thing as you look toward Miami, a better chance for some of those storms with some very heavy rain. Still dealing with the cleanup. And this damage this morning that we are seeing left behind, NBC Connecticut meteorologist Anthony Carpino has the latest from the town of Oxford. To see the damage that water can do, see those cars stuck, that is a quick way to not only be very dangerous, but also ruin your day, ruin your weeks ahead when you're dealing with what is left behind after that. So let's time this out. The last thing we need in this region is more rain, but that is exactly what we're going to get as we're watching this next frontal system move through. Here's 7 o'clock. We're getting some of that heavy rain. We're getting some lightning. Now, I will say the good news about this is that it's moving through quickly. It's not going to be that type of rain that we're seeing that's stuck around for hours that brought us this flooding. Let's head to New York City, where we had some flooding on Long Island as well. We've got some rain around, and then watch right at 5 o'clock as we're getting off work. We're trying to start our way home. We've got those storms moving through. You know, obviously a lot of people using the public transportation there in New York City. Want to have your rain jacket, your rain boots, be prepared for the rain that's moving through. Maybe time your day around that. Nothing worse than having to trudge through heavy rain, blowing around, dealing with some puddles and things like that, right? Boston, we've already had weather-related delays at the airport, and heading through your lunch hour, your afternoon, we could see more delays because of those storms moving through. Really going to see that possibility for some storms blasting back through during the overnight hours. Heavy rain, gusty winds, all of that coming along with it. And again, last thing that we need for some of these very saturated regions. We've got that rain moving in from Reading through Wilmington. We are going to see that pushing into Philly heading into your afternoon. Again, right around the time most people are getting off of work, so that could impact your afternoon commute there. We will see the good news behind this is you'll get a nice little cool down and some better weather, but we got to get through this next round of rain first. You're having. Well, the Weather Channel is your travel HQ, so let's check the forecast for the highways and the skyways. We're already starting to see some big delays this morning in major hubs. That is not what you want to see. Expecting some delays possible for, say, Denver when you get those storms bubbling up later today, but already seeing some delays for our northeastern airports, Central Florida, NCO, even down in Miami, maybe some weather-related delays as well. So could be a rough travel day out there. You can see it here, our airport delays, green bubbles for a lot of us, but what you'll notice is some of our major hubs like Newark, JFK, up into Boston, Logan. We are getting some of those travel delays, so let's let you know what to expect. Here in JFK, we've got a ground delay of 3 hours and 17 minutes. That is a rough one. You hate to see that. And you know, like that's a domino effect when you're talking about that, because that is impacting the flights coming, the flights leaving. Just a mess there. Newark as well. Liberty International, 2 hours and 23 minutes. So I feel for you guys if you're setting in these delays right now up to Boston Logan, where we've got over an hour ground delay going on there. So just a rough morning for travel at the airports. You know, download an extra podcast, maybe keep tuning into the Weather Channel, but just know that you could be dealing with some delays, and even more because we're going to have storms moving in, whether it's the airports or the roadways. As those storms bubble up through the afternoon and evening, some of them are going to be strong, maybe severe, and that could lead us for some delays, especially along that 95 corridor. Your afternoon rush could be impacted in NYC, Baltimore, Boston as well. And then again, we are watching for that possibility of some delays and even more delays from Orlando down through Miami before all is said and done. Jen, we've already got some delays popping up at MIA.
Boy, we are here to get you ready for what's ahead in your day.
That's right. From coast to coast, the Weather Channel has you covered. And especially for the East Coast, we've been dealing with rough surf, high waves, and some coastal flooding. And then, of course, we've been looking at the rainfall flooding that we saw across especially portions of Connecticut.
This is just because of thunderstorms that sat here and dropped unbelievable amounts of rain, which we'll show you coming up. So this is in parts of Connecticut. Look at the water. I mean, covering areas that you think is a road underneath it, or is it there? You know, you don't know if the road's washed out, and there have been some roads washed out, bridges that were damaged as well. There's been detours out there between Waterbury and New Haven. Danbury is what we're showing you right here. Oxford, another community really hard hit.
Yeah, just such a dangerous situation. And of course, maybe you weren't directly impacted, but if that was your commute, you know, and the bridge is washed out, then all of a sudden you're indirectly impacted. So rough situation over the weekend.
Day with rip currents.
Yeah, Jim, we've got another day of those beach hazards, the rip currents, the rough surf, the coastal erosion that's caused so many issues. The latest on Hurricane Ernesto, still a hurricane, and in fact, strengthening as of the 11 a.m. update to 90 miles per hour. Cat 1 moving quickly northeast at around 28 miles miles an hour. This is forecast to stay a hurricane into early Tuesday as it passes to the south and east of St. John's there. Now, then eventually we skip out of the Gulf Stream, out of the slightly warmer waters, and we start to get into those cooler sea surface temperatures. And that's when you see the system really losing some of its steam. But what we have is that wave and that wind energy sticking around throughout the day today, creating that life-threatening conditions at the beaches, whether it's the rough surf, the rip currents, as we've already seen the damage that the coastal erosion can do. So just so many different things coming along when you have that wave energy affecting our East Coast beaches like we have. We've got high risk of rip currents up Nags Head, Atlantic City, down through some of our Florida beaches as well. Daytona Beach, that high risk of rip currents. And then you've got the coastal flood issues. A couple different things are coming together. So we have that full moon shining beautiful and bright, right? But also impacting our tidal fluctuations. All of that coming together to bring us some coastal flooding problems. You can see here around Delaware Bay, around Atlantic City, up through Toms River, that possibility for some of that coastal flooding. Portions of Long Island dealing with not only some of that coastal flooding, but also, of course, some of that rainfall flooding that we saw. So far this season, we've had 5 named storms, 3 hurricanes, and 1 major hurricane. On average, we don't typically see our first major hurricane, that's a Cat 3 or higher, until September 1st. So we are ahead of time on all of those numbers that I just showed you. And here's what we're looking at. You may look at this and be like, well, what does that mean? It means when we are talking about where do we see the storms originate heading into late August, all doors are open, Jen. We've got the main development region here between Africa into the Caribbean that we see the storms develop, whether it's off the southeast coast, in the Gulf. So lots of different places where we typically see development, and those chances go up even higher as we head into early September for development.
Oh boy, that's Labor Day weekend. Yeah. So heads up. It could be a storm.
So expect your rain during this time, but that is going to be round and round of rain. It is also still summer, so you expect some heat, but maybe not the type of heat that is prompting these excessive heat warnings or heat advisories. Dallas, are you tired of sweating it out? I'm sure you are, because with this heat advisory, we are talking about, or this excessive heat warning actually for Dallas, we are talking about temperatures, your actual temperatures well into the triple digits, and that's in the shade. It's going to be even worse in the sun. We've got this ridge that is in strong control of our weather across the plains, across even into the southern Mississippi Valley. As that high strengthens, it continues to influence our weather in the form of very hot weather. Potential for record temperatures, highs and lows. So for our afternoons, record highs possible, and our mornings, which means we're also not cooling off, which is when it starts to get really stressful on our bodies, on our pets, on our AC, right? Because it's just cranking like 24/7. The record heat today possible in Abilene and Wichita Falls. Now I want you to pay close attention to this. The forecast in Wichita Falls today, 110. That is your actual temperature. And as we take a look at the forecast heat index, typically you think of the heat index and you factor in that humidity and you see that number bumping up. We actually are not looking at crazy high dew points in places like Wichita Falls. So your humidity isn't making that much of a difference, but it is still very, very hot with just your actual temperature. And that's where we're running into some of the issues. Now, as we look through Houston and Corpus Christi, you are getting some of that extra humidity. Abilene, Corpus Christi, Amarillo, still triple digits for you tomorrow, so that heat is sticking around. And Jen, it almost feels mean to go from talking about like 108 to Abilene to the crisp taste of fall that they're going to get elsewhere.
I know. I'll try to like maybe talk.
Question, I was like, wait, why are we talking about Labor Day travel already? And then I'm like, oh, it's in 2 weeks, so hopefully you are planning if you want to do something.
I know. I know. This has been the summer of travel, though. We were setting records for travel every single day for a while. Remember in June and early July?
Everyone's trying to get out there.
We'll see how it wraps up.
Enjoy some traveling.
Well, send your comments on social media, share your pics and video with us using the hashtag YesTV. Heavy
travel delays that we are already seeing stack up for some of our major hubs across the Northeast. Wherever you see the green bubbles, it's like, hey, great, we love to see that. But when you start to see other colors like the yellow or the orange or especially the red, that is not good news, especially when you're talking about a major hub like our New York area airports or even up into, say, Boston Logan. So JFK, we've got that ground delay, 3 hours and 17 minutes. That is not what you want to see at all. Heading over to Newark, 2 hours and 23 minutes for you. Of course, the ground delays are sometimes put in place in anticipation of what is going to be happening later. So just keep an eye on those delays, on those flight times, because could start to see this kind of domino. To LaGuardia, we've got a 47-minute ground delay there. That has kind of just been added on. Of course, we've been seeing that ground delay at Boston Logan as well. So just a little bit of a mess for Northeast travel for the airports. Along the roadways, it's going to be the same thing, especially when we get those storms moving across that 95 corridor. Some of those storms are going to have those gusty winds with them, some very heavy rain. All of that is going to lead to a slowdown. Just give yourself a little bit of extra time. Your afternoon commute going to be impacted as well. Some of those storms, some of that rain. Heading down to Florida, where lots of green bubbles on the map. We did have some delays showing up there at Miami International. That seems to have improved. But as we head through the day today, it is certainly a possibility that we get some of those delays going on. We've got that possibility for severe storms across North Florida, Jacksonville included, damaging winds, very heavy rain possible with some of these storms. And then, of course, you've got your afternoon storms bubbling up for West Palm, Miami, even some storms around this morning as well that could make travel a little bit slower. We are going to have the mix of sun and clouds for your PM rush, depending on where you are. You know the nature of those storms, especially in Florida. It could be raining a mile away, very heavy, just absolutely messing up the commute. And then where you are, it could be just fine. Tomorrow looks like a little bit of a better day, with the exception of, I think we're going to have to watch Central Florida because, Jen, we are still going to have that front hanging around and bring us that chance for storms there.
Yes, indeed. And, you'll see that in parts that are still in the throes of summer.
Yeah, Jen, we're watching that front that's going to kind of progress through the Northeast, and that front is going to end up stalling across Florida. But before it actually ends up stalling, it's going to help us pop up some storms. So right now we've got some rain. This started out as a little bit of storm action earlier, and now just some rain that's diving southward there through eastern portions of Texas, through Louisiana as well. We're watching some storms that have been bubbling up across South Florida. Look at this. You got a ton of lightning with these storms there in South Florida, so do keep that in mind if you're getting ready to head out the door. We've got that possibility for some strong storms for portions of that I-10 corridor, and it looks like we're seeing less of a probability of some severe storms there across Louisiana, which is good news. We're watching these morning storms wind down there. Meanwhile, we'll watch our afternoon storms start to bubble up here along I-10, Tallahassee. Some strong storms possible for you, Jacksonville, Gainesville, maybe some gusty winds, some heavy rain, a bit of lightning as well. That's going to be impacting you. Not widespread storms, but any of them that do bubble up could be a bit feisty. Here's our front that we're watching. By the middle of this week, it is going to be diving into Central Florida, and you might think, yes, a cold front, right? Not quite. Sorry, guys. It's actually going to end up stalling, and instead of bringing you some fresher, cooler, maybe a slight little taste of fall, it is actually going to bring you round and round and round of rain. I know it's the rainy season. I know you guys are used to the rain this time of year in Florida, but when we're talking about this frontal boundary rain, it isn't going to be your typical like sea breeze driven storms that pop up and push inward during the afternoon. It is going to be that type of rain that kind of sticks around, for entire days into the end of the week. So that is going to allow some of our rainfall to add up. General broad brush forecast 1 to 2 inches, but locally higher amounts possible where you get some of those storms over the same places over and over again. So let's talk to you in Tampa. You got some of that rain around for your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, showers and storms in the forecast. Miami, same thing. You have those storms that are going to be sticking around. So of course, if you're traveling to Florida this week, you could be dealing with some travel delays. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, just the last thing you want is more rain in that region, and sadly, that is exactly what we have in the forecast. I will say, though, the good news is that this is going to be, a fast-moving kind of line of rain for the most part, so not expecting that same type of training like we saw yesterday. But again, just even another drop of rain for that region is not at all what you want to see. Here at 7 o'clock, we've got that shower and storm activity moving through pretty quickly, which we will take. That is, kind of our saving grace here when we're talking about that possibility for more rain where it's already so saturated. Across New York City, you'll have some showers and storms around heading into that 5 o'clock hour. We're getting off of work. Maybe you're taking public transportation here. Want to make sure you have the rain boots, the umbrella, maybe the rain jacket as those storms are moving through. Now, the good news is moves through quickly, so maybe not too much ponding and puddling, but you know those flood-prone places with the poor drainage, definitely could see some ponding going on there. To Boston, down around the Cape, some rounds of showers going on as well. Providence, you are going to have a mostly dry day, and then heading into the evening, you can see another round of those showers and storms moving through. We've already had some showers and storms there around Boston. To Philly, Wilmington, watch what happens. See those showers and storms moving in ahead of that frontal boundary as we head through the afternoon. Maybe some gusty winds, definitely some heavy rain with this, a little bit of lightning certainly possible. And then we start to see things calming down heading into the evening. Albany, again, you've got some heavy rain that's going to move through. I mean, just pounding rain. Those windshield wipers working overtime and still not doing much. We are going to be stuck in the rain just a little bit longer there in upstate New York, as you'll have some of that rain sticking around for a bit longer. Let's head to Richmond down through Norfolk. You guys are going to see those showers and storms building in down along that 64 corridor. Here's 6 o'clock. Could be impacting your afternoon commute with that. That is going to continue filling in toward the coast. Norfolk, you're in it as you head into your evening. So if you have something planned for after work today, just keep in mind that you could have some of those storms around. And Jen, of course, we're watching the storms, but we also have had our eye on the East Coast for a different reason, and that's because of those beaches of us this morning. So whether it's the highways or the skyways, got to keep an eye on what is going on with that. You'll notice not a whole lot of green bubbles on this map, a couple different colors showing up on our airport delays map, and that is because we've got delays at all of the New York area airports and some delays showing up at Boston Logan as well. That red is not what you want to see. Look at this. We've got a ground delay of 3 hours and 17 minutes in anticipation of some of those storms moving in there at JFK. At LaGuardia, 47-minute ground delay. And you know, whether it's 47 minutes or over 3 hours, it's like you start to feel that anxiety when you see your flights getting delayed, because you're like, when are we going to take off? How long am I going to be stuck here? That delay there in Newark over 2 hours, almost 2.5 hours, in fact. Boston Logan over an hour as you've got some of those showers moving through. We had low cloud decks earlier. For today, not just the skyways, but the highways also could be dealing with some delays. 95, we'll have some storms moving through with this frontal boundary that's moving through. It's going to bring us that chance for some severe storms. Now, the payoff is going to be behind that frontal boundary with some cooler, drier, more fall-like air, but you got to get through these showers and storms first that we're going to be dealing with, Jen. Some of them could be a little bit feisty later today.
Of all the crazy weather